Good morning, all of you. Yesterday, we had seen how to create a simple SP, and after that, we had seen how to create a SP with input parameter, and we have also seen parameter with default value, and after that, one input parameter, one output parameter, and multiple input parameters, multiple output parameters also we had seen. And whenever you call a store procedure, make sure that you have to declare a variable for all output parameters to hold the value, because when you execute a procedure will give you what is known as the output parameter or output values that you have to catch it, that we have to declare before the executing of a procedure. That's where we have to declare a variable, then execute, say, some procedure and catch the value. Then we have to select or print the value so that we can read the value from the variable. So that's what we have seen. Now today, what I'm going to do is we have a proc called get balance, right? So there is a So let me see the existing proc. So how do you do that? SP underscore help text. So you have to see SP underscore, which is getting disconnected. SQL has stopped somewhere suddenly. So let us read. You will also get this kind of issues. Get this, the cross mark. See, Kedar, you are getting here. That's where you have to go to services.msc. Go to start MSc, and you will get lots of services for SQL Server. Those services may be interrupted or stopped. Okay, so you have to check whether SQL Server service is running or not. Otherwise, you will get this red mark here in this corner. Have you seen? If you get this kind of issues, go to start services.msc. It's open. Very slow. I don't know. S, so that you will go to SQL Server services. We have many services in this. So SQL Server, this is a service. Double click on this. Service is stopped. So when service is stopped, you would get this kind of errors. Okay. So what kind of errors? The connection could not be established, or you will get the red mark here. Okay. That the service would be running. So I am double clicking on this. Okay. Windows is attempting to start the following service on local computer: SQL Server, MS SQL Server. So you have to make sure that this services, must run. Now it is running, working fine. Started. Have you seen this? So let me close this window and connect this. Green symbol in this corner. So this is working fine. Okay, help text. I am in iBank. Help text get balance. So this is my existing proc created. We'll see and go back here and copy paste it. Create a procedure get balance ACID 101. This is a default value. So this is output parameter and this is also output parameter. How do you execute this view? Exec get balance. So if you give 10 and you need to declare two output parameters. So declare at the rate for money, that is a balance. Balance. Why too confused? Okay. You can give any name. The name 100. Okay. Now we have to say the rate bal out and at the rate out. And print rate print at the rate bal. Okay. But if you, by any mistake, if you give a wrong number in this, so this is a wrong number. So we don't have this kind of account ID. So it will not give you any kind of error stream. It will simply, it will give you like that. So customer does not know whether the given ID is valid or invalid or SQL server is not working. Okay. So to overcome those kind of issues, let me alter the proc. So what is that I'm doing? So written taken. Now I am seeing. So for example, if I give 1001, this is valid ID. This will give me count as minimum 1. So what is the account master here? The table name is master. Now if I give valid ID, it will give me the count as 1. If count equals to 0, that means that this val ID is not valid. For example, I am giving like this. Let me count it. If I count it, I'll get 0. Okay. So this 0, I am declaring another counter variable, and in that I am storing it. Okay. Now, if the count of the value, so at the rate, okay, whatever you are giving AC ID here, that AC ID I'm just taking here, and with that, what I'm counting it. If the account CNT equals to 0, that means the account ID is not proper. Then I'm printing a value, print invalid account number, and I'm returning some number. This means there is a problem. You may return some number here. Return 767 or return 1, return 2 like that. Okay. People will say return 1 or return 2 like that. So when you getting any error, you have to return non-zero. So non-zero means return 1, return 2 like that, or return -1, return -2. If you're able to, success the step, then you have to say return 0. So here, invalid account number, please check. And I'm also using a return statement indication that there is a failure. So it is not able to execute. Else, this is the proc. This will be executed and this will give you the proper values. So and return 0 and so go. Now what I'll do, I'll execute this order, must declare scalar variable at the rate balance. So where is that balance? You have in here integers. From here, do we have change to account master at the rate balance at the rate name? Yes, it has been. My proc is successfully executed. Now, how do I call? For calling, I have get balance, I have invalid number and one balance column out, one balance. Okay. I have also return value. So return value is used whether the called stored procedure executed successfully or not. If that is executed successfully, you will get 0. Otherwise, you will get non-zero. So .NET or Java people who are called SQL Server, they would like to know whether that is called successfully or not. If that is called successfully, they'll get, get balance will give you 0 in this at the rate RC. Otherwise, they'll get non-zero. So let us declare one more variable and use like this. And to 0, select at the rate balance. That means if it is successfully executed, if it's not, then you say SP is failed to execute. That means it is failed to execute. Why? It is saying invalid account complete check, SP failed to execute. Okay. So the return value is used to execute to to find out whether the called stored procedure is executed or not. Okay. 0 means successfully executed, return 1 means it is failed to execute. There is an issue. Okay. So any value you can keep, need not be 1 here. You can keep any number, any positive number, negative number you can keep. There is no issue there. Clear? So this is how we have to understand the procs. That we have to use input parameter. Why is that we have to use output parameter? All of them. And with return is that the procedure successfully executed or not. Okay, good. Let's go back to our notes and see. So we can create nested procedures and no limit on number of procedures invoked from procedure. Return statement to pass return codes. Recursion is allowed, and at the rate nest level to indicate how many nestings are over. So up to 32 levels. A proc can call another proc, that can call another proc, and that can call another proc. Like that, you can have maximum 32 levels. But one proc can call 1,000 procs. There is no issue. Okay. Return statement to return the value, not the return the data. Recursion, I am calling you, you are calling me. I am calling you, you are calling me. If the recursion is more than 32 levels, the entire store process execution will be stopped. So you can use at the rate transactions are, recursions are happening. So this is at the rate next level become 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. If you call me, then I'll call you, you call me, I call you, like that. If it is equals to 32, you have to say break and come out of the loop. Like that, you have to use at the rate next level. Clear? Now we discussed about, there is a beautiful storing or caching the execution plan. What do you mean by caching the execution plan? Whenever you create a proc, first time when you execute, the procedure will check lots of indexes, depends upon the data sets, which creates an execution plan. The thing is that tomorrow, the execution plan which you have created may not be, absolute. Somebody, did not mute the phone. Can you just check your mics? Otherwise, the recording will not be very good. Can you just mute the phones, please? I think Ravi, you have to mute the phone, please. ठीक है. Okay. And Ramesh, please do that. Oh, Arvind got a bike yesterday. Good, good, yeah. Sweets. In the sense, I have created an execution plan today. Tomorrow, what happens is I have, say, a 1 lakh rows. Using that, I have created execution plan. But after that, the 1 lakh size has become 10 crore of the data. 10 crore size in your table. So what happens? The execution plan you have cached, for taking 1 lakh rows into picture. But tomorrow what happens? That is completely changed. You have given a query. The query tomorrow they have modified in your proc. So what happens? The automatically you need to change the execution plan. So because the old execution plan cannot be used because the structures have been changed. For example, Tirupati you visited using train. You bought train tickets and you went to Tirupati. You have a plan in your mind. Second time when you go, you will take the same. I need to go to train counter and book a ticket and all of that. But your father said no. We'll go by flight today. Plan now cannot be used because now you know to book for flight tickets. So you don't know how to go about it. So if something changes, the old plan will not be used. If Tirumala Tirupati, demolish the buildings and the lodges and the, the queue lines, everything, they have constructed new buildings, everything there. So what happens? The old plan which you have it, and that cannot be used now because the structure and everything got modified in underlying tables. So if that is the case, we have to recompile the plan. What do you mean by recompile the plan? Recompile the plan means you have to again create an execution plan for the second time also. The first time plan you are not able to use it. Okay. Recompilation options. So with recompile option during the creation. So create a proc with recompile. So what do you mean? Now I'll create proc. I'll put with recompile here. Okay. When I say with recompile, so every time when I call this proc, what happens is this proc will not catch the execution plan. It will create the execution plan each and every time. When do you use this kind of a syntax? You think that every hour, every minute our data will change, my servers will change, my indexes will change, my many things would change in my underlying databases. If that is the case, developer will give this option with saying that with recompile with the proc. When they give with recompile with the proc, so every time which creates a new exit and that will use. So this will be very, very dangerous because it will consume lots of time because it is not able to use the execution plan because the structure of the table, the data size will change every now and then. Because of that, you're using, I don't want to use the cached execution plan every time you recompile. Recompile means every time create execution plan and that use it. So if you keep this, otherwise you need not keep. Otherwise, if you remove, it will create first time and second time onwards, which uses the existing execution plan. That is that. Okay. Now this is for the developer to use it. Now with recompile option during the execution. So we have created a proc. After that proc, you have used it 1,000 times. After some time, after 1,000 times, what happens? Somebody has modified table structure. They have deleted some rows and added few more rows. Now that time, the table structure and the indexes, everything have been modified in your tables. So that time, you came to know that I would like to, call this proc now with taking a fresh execution plan. Whenever you're calling, you have to say provide call this proc with to say with recompile option like that you have to provide. Now the original syntax not be this, so I have to just Google it. You will see how do you call a proc with recompilation option. So what happens this time when I am calling, I would get the fresh execution plan. The old execution plan will not be used. So that means your underlying tables have been modified. The SP recompile option. So you have a proc. You can use SP underscore recompile. You can give the proc name say ABC and you can recompile it. That means the DBA this. So whenever DBA will modify the bulk insert has happened or bulk deleted has happened or you have modified the indexes and all, automatically the structure, the schema would change. Then DBA would do these changes. So immediately what he does is he'll take all the uh, recompile it means he will create a fresh execution plan and keep it for you. Okay. So this is what we have to understand. Recompilation means the caching, creating an execution plan and caching it. Okay, that's what. So these are three options which you can use with procedure, with at the time of calling, and at the time of calling, and at the time and DB also. The second option is for the dev guys like us or .NET guys. Second option, because second option will be given to the .NET developers whenever they call the proc. And Ramesh is asking a question, what exactly is a output parameter? Uh, See, when you are calling a proc is giving you some data. The data you have to pass using a output parameter. For example, when you call a function, function will return something, right? How does it return? It returns using a return keyword, return value, return 0, return m, return k, return f, whatever it is. So the function is returning a value there. So if I want to return a value, I cannot use a return statement in procedures. I have to use output parameters. The one more thing is that function always returns a single value, but output parameter always need not be a single value, which may return a 10 values also. So I cannot use 10 returns in functions, but whereas I can use 10 output parameters to return the value. For example, you have a .NET program which is calling a proc, get me the balance. So when you call execute get balance, the proc supposed to get the balance, pass that value to the .NET program. The .NET program will print the value. So .NET will catch it and in a separate variable whenever I'm passing, then .NET will display in the ATM center. Clear, Ramesh? So when the communication is happening from backend server to front-end server through only through output parameters. So you will call a proc, the proc will give you some data that will be in output parameter. In front end, you display the data. Because if you print, if I use select, all of them will be printed at the server side, not at the ATM side. Many people think that, sir, if I simply say select get balance, so what happens? If you say select, the select command will print everything at the server. Server may be in Australia. You may be sitting in Mysore. Then how do you see that screen? So you have to pass the value to the client. The client will print it. So this is how we have to understand. Now, this completes a proc. So we discussed about written key, written value. Now today, let us understand types of procs, types of SPs. Okay, you have two kinds of SPs. One is system defined SPs, then you have user defined SPs. Okay, now user defined SPs means whatever user have created. Now system defined SP, system stored procedures. Now the system stored procedures we have to discuss. Already we have used, for example, SP underscore help, SP underscore help DB, or SP underscore, help, say, help indexes. Like that, you have anything which is starting with SP underscore, that is a system defined procedure. You can use these procedures to get some information from the computer. So I have used, whether knowingly or unknowingly, we have used many system defined store procedures, for doing things. For example, the SP underscore help will get you uh, the all the tables and everything, right? All the object sp underscore help, now, which will give you all tables, use everything. You may use exec or you may not use exec. Exec also you can use exec sp underscore help. This is the right way of executing it. Now, if you give a table name, then at the table values it will give you account master. It will give you the table structure and all. Okay, what a table size and when does the the table created, all of them will be there. Okay, to find out the database structure score db, then you can give this. Okay, like that we have seen many help db, then underlying tables, mdf files, ldf files, all of them you can just have a look. Okay, what is the size of the database? 3 MB. So whether online or offline, all of them you can just, when you have created, all of them you can see. I have formatted my system 2 days back, so the creation is Jan 29. Like that, you can use all procedures which is coming from sp underscore help. Sp underscore help means if you find like this is a system stored procedure which is given by SQL Server to use. So we are not creating them. So you never create user defined stored procedures, because note, never create user sp underscore. Okay, you never create your own space saying that sp underscore get help, get balance. Why? Because if whenever SQL Server says sp underscore this one, this will go to master database and try to see the value, because all these system databases, system of procs, these are these are stored in. Okay, all system databases are stored in master DB. So when you see sp underscore help, you, even though you are in the bank, SQL Server will blindly go to master DB and check for this sp underscore get balance. So sp underscore get balance will not be available in the master database, because why? When it sees sp underscore, which straight away jump to that. So never create user defined procedures with sp underscore prefix, using a prefix. So this is a simple thing you need to understand. Okay, apart from that, we have what is known as extended stored procedures. Okay, this is one more topic you need to understand. What do you mean the extended stored procedure? If you want to perform any operation, for example, inserting data, deleting data, you write T-SQL program. But I want to work not within the SQL Server. I have to work, out of SQL Server. What do you mean by out of SQL Server? I would like to communicate with Windows. I would like to send a mail using a POP3 server or SMTP server. So if you want to work out of SQL Server, definitely you cannot write T-SQL programming. That's where you have to use C and C++ programming. Now, if SP has any procedure has a C and C++ code, then the SP is known as extended stored procedure. For example, I would like to send a mail using SQL Server. So SQL Server cannot send a mail. How does SQL Server? SQL Server always insert data, delete data, update data. But now you are saying SQL Server should send a mail saying that this process is complete or this process is failed, like that. To do that, SQL Server, try to talk to a Exchange server or mail server or Google. So to talk to different servers, we need to write C and C++ code. Okay. So if a stored procedure has C and C++ code, that stored procedure is known as extended stored procedure. Or I want to go to D drive of Windows, create a directory, create a folder. So how do I create a folder using the stored procedure? You cannot do that, but directly you cannot do. But in your stored procedure, if you write C and C++ code, this C++ code will create a directory in Windows. Then this SP will be known as a extended stored procedure. So if you want to work with external resources, not with the SQL Server, then you have to go for extended stored procedures. Extended stored procedures, the prefix would be XP underscore. So XP underscore means you can identify this is a extended stored procedure which has C or C++ code. Extended stored procedures perform operations in external resources like operating system, mail server, etc. SP name starts with a, extended procs are located in master database underscore. The system store process is also located in master database. So exec SP ms version. So this will read current platform info from registry. Registry will be available in Windows. So how do you get the entries? So execute XP ms version. So let us do this. So I'm calling a another SP here. XP MS. What is the name? MS version. Okay. Press F. This is extended stored procedure which will give you what is the product name, what is the product version, and which is in what is the comments, SQL server. All of them you will get it. So if tomorrow your client is asking, give me the complete SQL Server configuration. This is the proc you have to execute. Execute XP MS version. Execute, you will get complete your system configurations. Private build, special build, Windows version, processor count, all of them. How many processors you have, should be execute, and this is the a single command. All of them are stored in registry of your Windows. So SQL Server is going to Windows registry and getting the info and showing it to you. Like that, you have a few XPs. All of them are system defined. Okay, all of them are system defined. I cannot create. I never created it. Okay, in your SQL Server. Now we have some more. Execute cmd shell os command. It is used to submit the commands to operating system. So I have given some example. Execute xp cmd directory d test. So if you want to make a directory in d colon, the directory name is test. Use this command. So you are in SQL Server, but you are making a G drive. So this is the command you have to use it. Execute sp underscore send mail message and email. This will send the mails to mail server. So like that, you can use few xp underscore system defined functions of the commands, and you should be able to work with externals of SQL Server. So these are extended stored procedures. The code you will have is C or C++ code, not the normal code. Is clear? Now, what happened is after a .NET introduction is over, now CLR or .NET CLR stored procedures. Okay. What do you mean by CLR stored procedure? CLR means Common Language Runtime, or simply say .NET. Okay. So now if I use C and C++ here, what happens is C and C++ has a one kind of a disadvantages. What is that? The memory can be leaked from C and C++. That is the disadvantages of any, C++ code. That means when developer is creating and writing a code, he has to, remove the memory when he is coming out of the application. But if you don't do that, what happens is it'll just you go back, you put your things there, but when you are closing your application, the application will not remove your data from RAM. So that will cause you a memory leaking. C++. But to overcome the issue, .NET used C# language .NET to create space. Okay, so that means you need not use C and C++ code nowadays. You can use, instead of C and C++ code, you can use .NET code, because .NET is a managed code. Managed code, managed code in the sense it will remove the memory whenever you are closing the application. But C and C++ cannot remove if there is a memory leakage that cannot be handled by the C and C++. But whereas .NET is a managed code and C or C++ are unmanaged code. Unmanaged code means they cannot manage, you know, the code is lying there in the RAM, nobody will delete them. So it will be very, very difficult for us to manage with the C++. Okay. So instead of using C and C++, people started using, so this is a negative point for this. What is C and C++ are, unmanaged code, and .NET is a managed code. Okay. So because of the .NET it is a managed code, and instead of using your extended stored procedures, now people are writing CLR stored procedures. Okay. Now whatever you can do with the extended stored procedures, the same things you can replace the code with .NET here. The same proc you will take. So you write proc. Okay, instead of writing C++, you would use a .NET code. Okay, then this proc is known as a CLR stored proc, and which is good. So all extended stored processes nowadays, they're slowly going to remove them. All will be replaced with .NET. You can also write your .NET code, and you can also place the code. So when you write a .NET, you have to get a assembly, right? That assembly you have to register in this and call init SQL. So if you go back here, go to programming, programmability, then you have assemblies. Okay, you have to keep your assembly somewhere. People who know .NET, actually that would be useful, and new assembly. You would be able to register this assembly. Assembly means .exe or .dll file. Don't worry about it. Okay, that you got to register here. Then create a proc. You call the assembly. So you creating a proc will be having same kind of code. Only for calling you need to have. Okay. So assemblies here will, to get you or to create .NET code inside your SQL server, and you can also use a complex procs you can write using a .NET, because using SQL server you cannot write very complex. I told you SQL server language is very small language, not very high language. If you want to write complex things, then go for the .NET. C and C++. Okay. So nowadays people are not writing C, C++. Extended store procedures are outdated. But even though you have one or two, but all of them are outdated. Now you have only pure procedures or normal store procedures which we are written. To write CLR store procedures, you need to have .NET code. In your case, will create and they'll give it to you. Otherwise, don't worry. You need not learn only to write .NET, C#.NET, you need not learn. So don't worry about it. Okay? So this completes a stored procedures.
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
Sir,
Yeah.
nested procedures. Can you give an examples for nested procedures?
Yeah, very simple. See, for example, if I have create a SP, create a proc, you have say SP1, you have begin here, and you have one more proc. So you have P2 here. Now what you say is, you will say execute SP1 here, and you say execute SP2 here. So what happens when you call SP1? One will execute SP2. When it will call SP2, SP2 will execute SP. This will be having a looping. So this is a nesting. This is looping. Or you may have another nesting also. So for example, I have SP2 like this. Now here I have SP3 I'm calling. So I have SP3 below. Like that. This is what is a nesting. I create and in that I will call say SP4. Like that, if I have SPs, if you call one SP, that calls another SP. This is nesting. I'm calling you, you're calling other. The guy is calling another guy. So that is calling a nesting and matter. So whenever you can go up to 32 levels of nesting, but not more than that. So this is, you can create a simple print statements and try to do that. If you cross below 32 levels, greater than 32 levels, the entire procedures stopped working and it will give you error. So this is the nesting. Okay. Proc within that proc. Okay. Yeah. You can also give, for example, if you have output parameters and all, you can declare variables here. Declare say at the rate x, say integer. So you need to give pass some value. You comma at the rate x, you have to say out. You can call like this. There is no issue. You can be given within the procs. So all of them, holds good. So there is no change. Whether you call out of the proc or inside the proc, the syntax and all will not change. Okay. So if you have any questions, we'll come back tomorrow.